I like to start out like we do with a lot of our calls, talk about does anybody have any specific wins? I mean, you can share any win you want to around multifamily, but specifically when it comes to reaching out to brokers, has anybody had some success? Is anybody starting that process? Is any or what's keeping you from doing it? That's just looking for you guys to participate, share, tell us where you're at. That helps us to know that number one, we're adding value to you. Number two, tells us what you need. How can we add more value to you? What are you guys looking for? What are you looking to get out of this call? So anybody going to volunteer to help me with that? And if not, I'll start calling on people. Jeff, you're the only one with your microphone open, so I'll pick
I've
on
just
you.
been sitting here quiet, minding my own business, but that's okay. If you need something to talk about this, I talk to brokers every day. I have to tell them, no, this is not what I want to buy. I want to buy this, and this. And if I'm specific with them, they'll call me back when they do have those things. So you just have to know what you want to buy, know what you're after, and know what price points. You have to answer the questions. You might have a little cheat sheet with you as far as what you want to talk to them about, and make sure you talk about everything on your little cheat sheet while you've got them on the phone. If for some reason you don't get all those answers to the things you have listed there, call them back and say, I forgot to ask you about this. 2 or 3 calls in a week, the brokers get familiar with you and say, oh yeah, I remember talking to you such and such, blah, blah, blah. Pretty soon they'll send you a deal like they do me anytime they get a deal, just to see if I'm interested.
And that is fantastic advice, right? That the key in any business is the follow-up, right? That first call is important.
Of all the money made, 80% of all the money is in the follow-up.
Yeah, 100%. And that's true with anything.
Regardless, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what the statistics are on, number of touches before somebody does business with you, but it's pretty rare. I know a lot of people in the single family world that are doing door knocking right now. Right? Nobody gets a contract the day they knock on the door. It just doesn't, I'm sure it's happened. Somebody has literally been invited in and they wrote up a contract on the kitchen table. That is so unbelievably rare. It's more like 6th, 7th, 8th time you touch that person that you do business. And
you might have a better chance of being struck by lightning than to get that deal that wrote up on the first visit.
That's exactly right. And as a lot of you guys know, we use 2 primary tools. We use CREXi and LoopNet, and we go and we find a property that may or may not look particularly interesting. We try to pick something that has the chance of being a deal, right? But whether or not it's a deal is just not that important. It's something to have a conversation about. It's starting, it's an opening to a relationship. Now, if that leads to a napkin underwrite and the napkin underwrite says, let's dig deeper, awesome. I mean, I've definitely had phone calls where the first time I called a broker, we ended up submitting an LOI on that deal. That's, again, very unusual that would happen. But I like to start with a property just to have something to talk about. And they can, through that conversation, they can start to understand what it is we're looking for. And then it's in the follow-up, after you've done your napkin underwrite, when you call back and say, hey, we're not going to move forward with this one, and this is why, now they start to get that second touch. They start to get to know you a little bit better, start to understand what you're looking for. And like you said, then they start sending you deals, right, Jeff? But yeah, no, they're not going to remember you from one phone call. So in fact, I go through my notes from this Zoom, because I've been doing this Zoom now pretty much every week since October. There's a lot of people I called on these Zooms that I didn't follow up with. So I need to go back through that and make sure I'm touching these people again. So Jeff, you mentioned you talk to brokers every day. Do you literally?
I have at least 3 brokers I talk to on a pretty much daily basis. If it's not the same 3, it's a different 3. So I talk to at least 3 brokers every day.
Okay.
Sometimes it's 5 or 6.
Are you actively negotiating any deals right now?
Well, I actively negotiate on my end, but the people on the other end aren't actively negotiating. I run into the roadblock of unrealistic sellers, unrealistic cap rates, and the interest rate and the cap rate are inverted in their mind. They don't understand how stuff works, and I try to explain it to them. The broker agrees with me, but the sellers are not agreeing with either one of us. So
can I jump in? This is the quietest you guys probably heard me for a while. Do you follow with them to see if those properties sold? Maybe not like a week later, but like a month later.
I follow up on everything, whether it sells or not. If it sells, I know it's a dead deal to me. If it's still in the process, that's one thing. But they always seem to call me back when it falls out of favor. And I said, why did it fail? Well, sometimes they tell me, sometimes they don't. And then I tell them why I think it failed. And then all of a sudden they say, how'd you know that? Like I've got inside information. I just look at a deal the way the banks look at the deal, because if I can't get a loan, I can't buy the deal. And if I can't get the financing on it, then it's a zero deal for me, you know?
So big reason why I ask is because I had a property actually recently where we had sent an offer. We got beat up by like a crazy offer, which I'll take that loss. I'm like, all right, you know what? Like you beat me. There's no way we're matching that, right? Like it's literally impossible. So I'm like, all right, cool, that's fine. And then all of a sudden someone else brings to my attention, hey, the deal's back. And I was like, hold up, time out. So then I give my broker a quick call, calls the other agent, and he's like, oh wow, they are back. But you see, here's the thing, and I know most the brokers I work with, I'm a broker, so I would do this. I would have called us back. You know, we're second in line for the last time negotiations happened, but that didn't happen. You know, and you can't control that. So it's like if someone didn't bring it to me, would have never known this went back live. So it's really important to like follow up with the ones that maybe they said they got under contract a month ago. You know, obviously in this space, we know that escrow takes a lot longer. So, okay, maybe a month's been enough times where something could have happened. So you want to make sure for everybody, like just because they don't bring up a deal, or maybe they forgot to bring it up to you, or forgot you were interested, or whatever the case is, just ask about it. It's another thing to talk about, you know? So much on these calls, I feel like we're looking for things to talk about, which there's always a lot of things. I feel like that's a very good one. Or just, hey, how are the escrows you're currently going, you have open, how are they going? You know, and like sometimes talking about their business, trust me, I'm a realtor. You ask a realtor to talk about their own business, if they like to talk. We think we're busy by just talking to people, which isn't really the case always. But you get my point. Like if I'm talking to a prospective potential buyer, the more I talk, the more I feel like I'm keeping my day busy, you know? So keep that in mind too. I feel like that's very
well, here's something I'll help with everybody on this call, is that a lot of the brokers that I talk to are either brand new or they've been doing it for 20 years. Okay. They fall somewhere in between those two categories. I have yet to see a real salesperson as a broker. I've been selling for nearly 50 years and nobody can sell better than me. I just know it in my heart of hearts. But these guys, they are order takers. They are not salespeople. And the sales training is lacking in just about every brokerage I've ever contacted. They don't know how to follow up. They don't know how to return calls. They don't know how to return emails. I mean, I had to fight with the one brokerage to get somebody. I called every number in the brokerage before somebody answered the phone. I shouldn't have to make 10 calls to get a hold of one person. Somebody should always answer the phone. And when they don't respond to your emails, you know, what are you going to do? You have to either call them or forget about them. And a lot of times the deal's gone by the time you reach somebody because nobody gave you the information you need to make a decision. So it's, you know, one of those catch cans, and they're worried about more about the NDA being signed than they are about doing a deal. So
to your point, especially with this whole boom of real estate and influx of agents, at least in the single family space, I joke about this a lot. No offense to anyone here that did get their license during COVID, but because of the way the market was, at least I can say about here in LA, as you guys know, I'm from Los Angeles. Realtors don't know how to decrease the price on a listing. Because they didn't have to. If you got your license post pandemic, you don't know how to do it because you never had to.
Right.
So it goes back to your point where brokerages didn't need to train, or it wasn't easy to because it was on Zoom and it wasn't in person, or XYZ, and you didn't have to because you literally put it on the market and it would sell before you can even blink. So
well, those days are gone.
Well, somewhat. It depends. I always do think it depends, but I agree with you. Generally speaking, it's not that crazy. Real quick, I do want to answer one thing in the chat. Would this underwriting help me to understand mobile home park and self-storage, or completely different? So one, underwriting is tomorrow. We don't dive into that. That is something we could possibly. I don't really find too much of a difference in my calculator when I'm factoring that in. It's my expectation that changes. Obviously, if I'm doing mobile home or self-storage, I have different expenses. I have different returns I'm expecting. I have different, not even maybe structure might even be similar, but overall, remember, these calculators aren't just multifamily specific. We're literally calculating money coming in, money coming out. What is the output? What can I increase the revenue to? What can I decrease the expenses? Or do the expenses increase as I increase revenue? If you want to do it to run a business, by all means, be my guest. Just know what you're playing with. So I personally use the same calculator to do mobile home, self-storage, mixed use. That's where it gets a little tricky when you get the leases and additional income. And Jeff, I feel like you've had bad experiences with that, like the trauma of trying to underwrite a mixed use with 100 different things going on and the possibilities, and those get wacky. We may revisit that again because I know there's one Atlanta deal. I actually liked it a lot. There's just a few issues with it that kind of limited the upside. But that one was a wacky, like mixed use, revenue over X dollar amount, which is hard to predict anytime. Was a part of their income. And then you add the triple net aspect. How do you calculate that? A lot of crazy stuff. You have to do a little more digging into leases and stuff. But I personally like them, so they are pretty cool. I do like to diversify in that sense. I wouldn't recommend anyone on their first one going out for the wackiest combination of units humanly possible. But it's good to know. At the end of the day, it is fun. Yeah, I hope that helped, Raymond. Got a self-storage need help with? I know you're driving. Whenever you get a chance, or if you don't on this call, just let me know and I'll message you. But my number's there, so if you want to text me, we can chat more about that tomorrow.
Awesome.
Perfect. And then, Jeff, did you want to add anything? Or if not, I have another question here. But
well, I was gonna ask you if you had a need for something in Atlanta here, because this is where I live and work every day. If you need something in Atlanta, just give me a call.
Absolutely.
If I can go walk a property or go talk to somebody for you, I'm glad to do it. So
here's a question. Do you mostly reach out to brokers in Atlanta?
I do, but I do most of my reaching out outside of Atlanta because the Atlanta market is nuts right now. If you can buy it, you're going to have to pay through the nose. They won't cash flow. I refuse to participate in a deal where it doesn't cash flow day one. That's just one hurdle I can't get across. I like the fact that a lot of things appreciate here, but you got to have cash flow to keep things going. If you can't make a buck or two, buy a tank of gas or something, I mean, why bother doing the deal, you know?
Jeff, I said I live in Los Angeles.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Trust me, I get it.
You know the traffic. You know the markets are probably similar in that respect, but people are paying top dollar for garbage. You know, I passed on a D area, a D minus area. The property was all renovated, but I couldn't do anything with it because I couldn't get the funding from the bank. The bank says, I'm not going to loan you money in that area. So, you know, if I do things the way the banks do it, I'll have a solid deal. But if I try to do a deal that the banks won't do, I'm just wasting my time and everybody's efforts in the process. So I
I
try to
agree.
do it the same way the bank does it.
Yeah, and I think also with that, I'm always open to looking at a deal anywhere.
Yep.
It's just knowing an area and being very specific and knowing what will and won't work in this market is very important. Okay, real quick, let me respond to this one. If I want to invest in my first deal, do I need to hire a mentor? What bank will work with an experienced business owner with money but never purchased? Okay. Let me touch base on this one real quick. And I'm gonna Josie, do I need to hire a mentor to invest in your first deal or to do your first deal? Because those are two very different things.
Okay, I really want to do my first deal.
Yes. Okay. So because investing would be like you're just putting up the money and you're an LP, which means you're not hands-on. And I actually like this question because it kind of takes us to the root of all of this, and kind of like the first step. But when you're investing in the deal, you're an LP. So that means you're just parking your money and going on for the ride. If you want to do the deal, then you're the GP. So that's what everyone's goal, I think, is. At least that's what my goal is. You guys let me know what your goals are in the chat. That'd be pretty good conversation. So on that topic, real quick, I'm gonna try to shorten as much as I can, but I believe you can get a mentor too soon because you don't want to spend a lot of money to join something and then kind of be looking around like, okay, I don't know what to do still. I was in a mentorship. It wasn't the right time for me. Just it wasn't working how I wanted it to. I wasn't in the right place with the business. I pulled the plug. I was like, this doesn't make sense. Now I'm like, maybe I'll join one. I don't know yet. Still thinking about it. Best way to learn local meetups and mentors is actually stuff like this. Like utilize free education. Utilize asking people who are doing deals. Like I just got back from Florida this past weekend. I was walking 120 units. It was hot, but that's besides the point. Like I am doing deals. Like I'm not here just a talking head and just trying to, hey, listen to me. But like I've been through the process. I've been in mentorships where I had to pay and expensive mentorships and whatnot. And I've luckily been in a place where I can talk to a lot of amazing people like you guys. And I've learned through not only you guys, but other people. Like, thank you, Jeff, for volunteering today. Like, I learned a lot from people like you guys, right? And I think it is important to know what your team is going to look like. And that's why I kind of harp on that a lot is I kind of got lucky how I met my team, but it was through this community. I owe it all to being involved and putting myself out there and people knowing who I am. And that's how I found the team I have that we walked this property with. It's interesting how life works like that, but I do really harp on, and I'll finish off with this, is know what part of the equation you want to be in, know what you're good at. I do think you should learn kind of a general idea of how a lot of things work, but it's kind of like going to college. We're trying to shorten that as much as you can. Obviously, we don't want to do a 4-year thing, but like everyone has that general education. You know a little bit about everything. You don't have to be an expert in any of the specific things that you don't want to be hands-on in, but make sure you do have something that gets you a seat at the table. Because if you're just okay at everything, you don't have a value that like we can say, okay, Jody, you're handling this. We know we could count on you. Run with it. And this is your value to the team. Yeah, it's great to have someone that can do a little bit of everything, but that means someone else still has to do each of those things still. You know what I mean? So knowing what you're good at, everyone should learn how to underwrite. I don't care if you're asset manager, project manager. I don't even consider underwriting a specific job title, to be fair. That might not be a popular opinion, but at the end of the day, if you are just the underwriter, that's tough. Because you remember, you have 5 years on average, the life of a deal, where you are just banking on that one underwriting you did, or even if it was a multiple, like you need more involvement. So Find out what you like to do. I always recommend, if you, especially for your first deal, find a group that's doing deals. Finding deals is a good way to start. Nobody's ever going to say no to capital. I think that's one of the biggest ones that people can get their foot in the door. If you know how to raise capital and you know you have access to a lot of capital, you'll be able to put your, like, people will know you, people will reach out to you, and then you just have to understand how to underwrite the deals, and if the deals that are out there, which one you want to partake in. And I'll let Jeff kind of continue as I read the comments and catch up.
Yeah, I was just going to add into that people have to understand that multifamily investing is a team sport. You can't do it by yourself. If you try to do it all by yourself, you're going to lose every single time. The other thing is people that are, like you said, people that are doing deals, you want to talk to them and pick their brain, see what kind of position you could include them in or exclude them from if they would be willing to help you with your first deal. I've talked to probably 50 different operators, and all of them are glad to help people with their first deal because they were at some point in their life that they didn't have their first deal yet, and they needed a little help to get there. So they understand that, and all you have to do sometimes is just ask. And if they won't do it, okay, that's a no. You check with them again later. You check with somebody else. Pretty soon, if you ask enough people the same question, somebody will give you the yes you're looking for. Hopefully they know what they're doing, but try to associate yourself with smarter people than yourself. I have a hard time with that, but that's a problem we all have at one point or another.
And I want to add something to a point you made that I think was a great one. It's one thing to be doing deals. It's another thing to putting offers out. For example, Jeff, you're saying like you underwrite, you're offering. So you understand the market where you're putting these offers in because you're getting the direct feedback. No one ever knows how the market is if they're not actually putting the offers in because you don't know what the response is. You know, it's easy to say, oh, the market in LA is crazy. I'm a realtor. I'm putting offers for buyers. I'm seeing it firsthand. But if I'm just saying that because I think it is, but I'm not putting offers, there's not real validity to what I'm saying. Like, I'm just saying it to say it because real estate's crazy and it's easy to say that, right? But I do know there's places that deals are being done. There's places that people are putting offers in. And remember this, and this is kind of like the realtor hat I'm wearing right now. Every single day, people are putting offers, people are getting under contract, and people are buying stuff. How are you getting involved with that? And to Jeff's point, like, yeah, sellers are unrealistic. They are searching for the one crazy buyer, and they're out there. Maybe they don't find them today. Maybe they don't find them in a month. They'll find them one day, or maybe they won't, and they'll wake up. That's none of our business. I have a few deals I'm working on putting together. Commercial area, awesome. So David, perfect. Like, remember, guys, at the end of the day, we were 4 people walking 120 units, and it took us all day. If I had to do that alone, I would have just like, I'm out of escrow. Like, I'm not doing it. Like, it was too hot, too much going on. Like, you can't do it alone. There's so much stuff to go on. And I think we also don't realize, like, last thing I want to point out is we don't realize how much is needed between the LOI being accepted and escrow opening. Like, question, who knows what an EMD is and who has one available? Because
I do not.
Our EMD's earnest money deposit. Ours was 1%. Our purchase price was 17.7. That's a $177,000 deposit you need 3 to 5 days after accepting or the PSA being prepared or accepted, which means escrow's open. If I put an LOI today, if I get it accepted next week, and if I have a PSA ready the week after, in 2 weeks, I have now 1 more week to find $200,000. If you don't have that ready, you already lost the deal. But you can't even put the first thing that's going to show faith of, like, good faith. Even a bank might not get you the money fast enough, but that was a good one, David. I love it. Like, even then, you already lost the deal before you even, like, end credibility to a certain extent. Like, you have to have that. No broker will take you seriously. Jeff, I'm sure you get this a lot. When they ask for proof of funds, I honestly think they want proof of funds just enough for the EMD. Like, who? And you have to pay a broker to put the PSA together. That's another monster. Like,
And one of my partners says anybody that asks for proof of funds, just hang up on them.
agreed. But heck, if I'm a broker and you don't have the PSA, sorry, the EMD money, I'm not continuing that deal. I'll pull the plug before you even think about it. Go for it, Ronald.
Hey, Edward. Hey, Peter. Hey, Jeff.
Going.
Actually,
Hey,
I'm fine, thanks. Actually, one of the markets I'm looking in is Atlanta, Georgia. The two markets I'm looking at are Atlanta, Georgia, and Knoxville, Tennessee.
okay.
And I actually, well, two bits of news. Number one, I got two people from my team within the last week. So one of which happened as a result of these calls with the Freedom Chasers calls. So one of them I met. I'm part of MFM, the Multifamily Mindset, and one of my underwriter I actually met through there, and the person who's doing my asset management on the team. I actually met him on the GP call about a week or 2 weeks ago from this network here. And I just asked a lot of questions. I just was very honest and said that I'm starting off. I'm really interested in learning. And I asked him if we could connect offline. And we did. We had a great conversation. This gentleman named Sean. And he and I just really had great synergy. He has a wealth of information. He's an experienced investor. He also said he can be a KP on some of the deals too. And we had very similar goals as far as finding a core team. And he is just actually very interested in working together with me. And I introduced him to, my underwriter, Valerie. We had a conference call yesterday. So I've got two people on the team already now. So one of which is as a result of the Freedom Chasers call. So thank you for that. Second thing is I actually was speaking with a broker via email back and forth. And he was asking, let me see, I'm pulling up the email right now. He was actually asking me to, number one, send him a copy of my driver's license. Yeah, I want to make sure I read this out correctly because I need to know if this is, yeah. So I asked him, why would I need to give you a copy of my driver's license? He said, here it is. To move forward, please send me a copy of your driver's license. And number two, I'll send you necessary documents to bring you on board as a client. This will include a brokerage agreement, affiliated business disclosures, and brochures and pamphlets as required under Georgia law. Now, I told him we're not working with any broker exclusively. We are working with multiple brokers. And, if after a couple of deals, then you've got that you bring to us that's high quality, fit our buy box, and we're able to move forward with it, then obviously then you get the first choice, but that doesn't mean we're working exclusively with anyone. I asked him why did I need to do that. His response was, and tell me please if this is accurate. He said, I asked him why would he need a copy of my driver's license. He said, you may not be aware, but our industry is riddled with tons of fraud from out-of-state and /country investors. Since I primarily represent investors out of state and country, it's a best practice of ours to collect a driver's license or an official ID to minimize our exposure to real estate fraud.
So first thing I would say is if they have an NDA, I kind of get that regarding documentation. Like I've signed them. I'll basically almost sign anything, so that's for me. But with the NDA, it's kind of like, okay, sure. It depends. If it's on market, I'm probably not gonna do it. If it's like CREXi easy and I can just click it, I might do it. Realistically, if I have to go through trouble to get the data, I don't want to work with you anyway. Secondly, if they're asking for your driver's license, tell them first drinks on them. That's what I would do.
Great, first drinks on them.
Yeah, but I'm also a smart ass. Like, you want my driver's license? Cool. First drinks on you. We're not having a second. Good night. Like, but that's just me. So yeah, I've never had anyone ask me for my driver's license. That's kind of odd. But in regards to like non-disclosure stuff, yeah, sure. Like, I get it. Like, it comes down to like talking to them and just being very like personable with them. If they're just sending me an email and we haven't really had a phone call, I'm kind of like, like you're already on the defense and we haven't even talked yet. I'm like, I'm okay. Also, if I have to do too much stuff, I'm just lazy. I'm just like, whatever, I'm over it.
Well, here's the thing though. He said in regards to the brokerage agreement, this, I wasn't sure about this, but Georgia requires an agreement in place for us to have a working relationship. I only represent clients through an exclusive agreement because of the time, energy, and resources it takes. What you are looking for is a bit of a needle in a haystack, so I intend to bring you on board as a non-exclusive client. However, this still requires an agreement in place.
Okay, let me interrupt you real quick.
Sure.
Read that carefully. If it's an exclusive agreement for the specific property you're requesting information on, you're fine. I've also had a broker send it to me where they wanted a general. What I mean general is it's no address, exclusive agreement. Every deal has to run through them. I told them, hell no. That you should never sign. NDA and exclusive agreement are different things. Jeff, you get what I'm saying, so jump in if you want to add anything. But
yeah, I was working a couple of deals in St. Louis a few years ago, and the lady that was on the brokerage team, she wanted me to sign a document with her that all of my deals would go through her. And I said, look, lady, I said,
exactly.
I don't know you from Adam. I don't know if you can produce, but if I sign something with you for a 2-year agreement and you don't produce, I can't buy anything from anybody else. You're tying my hands and I'm letting you do it. That's not going to happen.
And not only that, it's even if you don't realize that that's what the thing says, like the contract says, you may be indebted to them for a fee. So you want to make sure that it's sometimes like a broker will say, this is an agreement for this property to secure their interest, which like guarantees a commission check for them. Because in this game and in this market, Jeff, please add to that if you've seen this. So in multifamily, more than residential, the seller may not offer to pay buyer's commission. So now, if I have an agent that brought me the deal and says, hey, in order for me to secure my interest, can we agree on this commission percentage, which they're still going to work for? And let's say it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, let's say 1.5, like 1 to 2.5%. Just give it that range depending on the price. Which, do you always want to pay it? Is it like, yeah, I'm gonna offer to pay every broker's fee? No, you want the seller to pay it. But if you know ahead of time, they're upfront with you, they're honest about it, and you know it's happening throughout the process, make your money. You brought me the deal, go for it. Like, I would never say no to that.
I'm an advocate of giving an agent both sides of the deal if they bring me the deal. Okay, if it's their deal and they bring it to me, I like to pay them on both sides. That way, they bring me more deals.
Correct.
The other end of the spectrum, when they want you to secure a position for them in anything that you buy, that's just a big red flag for me. But if there's two agents and one's the listing and one's a selling agent, those two have to get along to figure that out. I don't have a dog in that fight.
Yeah, and I get what you're saying, Jeff. So to that point is, like, I sometimes work with brokers who are like representing me on the buy side, and they just know and they network with a lot of agents that they're friends with, or they're scouring the internet all day, or they're making calls and they have that network. Then you deserve it. By all means, like, and look, at the end of the day, I'm not saying pay every single person that asks you for a check or a commission, but if they are putting in the effort for you, go for it. Like, in the grand scheme of things, 1% on a property, on a deal, that shouldn't be the reason the deal doesn't work. You know, if you have other issues with the deal, that's not one of them. Now, can it get, like, you just want to be upfront. Like, talk to the agent, make sure you're on the same page. And at the end of the day, it is really important to make sure that it's transparent. Like, you don't want any surprises. Either way, it's going to go into your underwriting. It's going to be part of your all your pitch decks or your total, like how you break down all the numbers and how the capital is being raised. So it's not like you're taking capital that other people aren't aware of, or there's not a line item for it. Like, it's all factored in there. Just make sure that you know about it and you agree to that, and that's fine. So let me see if anything happened in the chat, because I kind of lost track of it. The partnership thing. How do you find partners, people you can trust? It's it's yeah, like Sasha, thank you so much for that comment. You put it the best. It is kind of like dating. Protect each other with documentation. Yeah, and at the end of the day, the more you know what you can bring to the table, and the more you know what role you want to play, the better idea you have of what you want to get out of a deal and what you deserve. You know, it's really hard for your first deal to be like, hey, what GP percentage you think you deserve? You're like, I have no idea. And it happens, like you don't know. And even in this moment, you're probably not gonna know, but you learn as you go on. Like maybe the first deal you don't get as much as you would have hoped or as much as you thought you deserved. But if you get it done and you can be part of it and you can learn and you can put that under your belt, that's probably worth more than any percentage you can get. You know? So on off-market listing, that's basically for institutional and qualified investors. Can you elaborate on that? Like, did they specifically say what is it like? How do they define that, Alicia?
Yeah, yeah. So first it was weird because I was like, it says it's off market, but it's on a listing site. And when I clicked on it, it basically said it was like under one of the categories, it was like institutional funding or something like that. And then it was basically like if you're not a qualified buyer, like don't even bother talking to us or reaching out. And I thought that it was like exorbitantly priced, but it was also like I think it was near Miami, so it could have been accurate. But I just was kind
Sounds
of
like
like, okay, I guess I'll pass, but
So
sounds like in the single family world when the wholesaler's listed as long-term rental. What does that mean? That means the only way you can buy this is you're planning on holding it a long time because it's not worth it today. Institutional investors pay more than you and I because they got billions and billions of dollars and they've got to get them out on the street. So they're willing to take a lower return than you and I are. So that's what it sounds like to me. That certainly, wouldn't be a deal I would probably invest a whole lot of time in. And that is interesting on a listing site that it's off market. Well, maybe it was off market before, but you just put it on the market. So anyway,
it might be code for no cash flow.
Yeah, exactly. It's same thing with long-term rental, right? You got to hold this before you can make any money because in the short term, you're not going to make any money. And I agree with what you said earlier, Jeff. We can't, especially if you're on this call, you can't afford to buy a deal that doesn't cash flow day one, right? You're just getting started in this business. There's no way you're going to survive. How are you going to keep that deal alive if it has no cash flow? That's just not.
How are you going to eat? I mean, how are you going to pay your own rent?
And no bank is going to, no bank is going to back you. Nobody's going to let you into the deal in the first place.
Wasting your time. Exactly. I agree.
So yeah, I underwrote, did a napkin on one the other day. It was actually this morning, and it's they're trying to sell it. It's here in the metro area, and they're trying to sell a C property at a 5 cap. Like how can I buy a 5 cap? I mean, what can I even get debt at right now on a C class property? There's no way I could make any money. But that's just the disconnect still between the sellers, where the sellers are at, and the reality of the market. And it's going to take more time for that gap to close. Some of these properties won't trade for years because the seller doesn't have to sell and they're making money. They've seen the success of other people over the last several years. They're like, well, let me get a little piece of that, not having a clue that the world is completely different. And you can't get those prices today. So, but it'll come. There'll be more deals that'll come to market over the next several months, and we'll see many more opportunities. But we have to be prepared. We have to educate ourselves. So, Josie, I wanted to come back. Well, a couple things. You talked about a team sport, Jeff. I had written a note down to mention that. We always talk about that. This is a team sport. And this is your team right here. This is where you're going to build your team. And I had made a note to talk about that, and Ronald already beat me to it because he told us right there live how he's building his team. And Ronald, how long have you been coming on these calls? It's only been a few weeks for you, right?
I think this is my third week actually.
Yeah, I know you just found us recently.
Yeah, so
But
this week is number 3, last week 2, and the week before that. And like I think on my first week, I actually connected with Sean, who is now my the asset manager.
yeah, great team member. I know Sean. So I think I know the Sean you're talking about. But anyway, for some of you folks are brand spanking new, right? Put your information in the chat. Mention what you are looking for. If you know what your superpower is, put that in the chat. This is where you're going to build your team. You're going to build your teams by showing up to these calls. Josie, I wanted to go back to your question about mentorship, right? You could ask 10 different people that question. You're going to get 10 different opinions. The people who sell mentorships, of course, are going to tell you, I wish I had done it sooner. And I think some of the ones I know that say that I would have paid for mentorship sooner, I think they believe that in their heart of hearts, right? But guess what? They're 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. They're well into their career and they succeeded. Of course, they had what it took. They did what it took to get to where they are. So yeah, it would have benefited them had they, but if you're brand spanking new, you don't even know if you're going to hang around 6 months. You don't know if this is what you want to do. Now, what I would say is if you already have been around real estate for a long time and you know in your heart of hearts that multifamily is where you want to be and you're going to stick with it for years, go for it. But if you don't know that yet, take advantage of the free education. Come to our Zooms. I see Sasha nodding his head. And Sasha's been on a whole bunch of these Zooms. I don't know Sasha personally yet. I need to get to know him. I know enough to know he's not stupid. He's not showing up on these Zooms because he wants to waste an hour on Sunday night, because he wants to come and waste another hour on Monday night. He's getting value. He's getting value over and over and over again. Keep showing up. You will learn what you need to learn. You'll find the resources that you need. Go on YouTube. There's tons of free resources, right? When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. I would suggest you probably don't need a mentorship right now. Find out, look, there are tons of people on these Zooms who have invested tens of thousands of dollars in mentorships, and they're only 2 pages ahead of you. Get to know them. How can you add, right? Like, and many of you on this call, you know who Rod Khleif is, you know who Vina Jetty is, you know how. It would be really hard for me to figure out how can I add value to Vina Jetty today. I don't know. I don't know how I would, right? But Jeff McCann, who lives here in my town, he's doing deals. How can I?
Hi, Jeff McCann.
How can I add value to Jeff McCann? How can I add value to Ronald Sohan? I can find people in these groups that are a little bit further ahead than I am and add value to them. That's what I would tell you to do. And then when you get to the point where, okay, I'm ready to, turn on the jets and jump this thing to the next level. Because if you go into a mentorship day one and you don't even know how to spell multifamily yet, the chance that you're going to take that information and really run with it is just not, in my opinion, it's just not that good, right? So get a foundation under you, and then we'll figure out if you need a mentorship. But I would say today you're probably not there yet. That's my opinion. I'm sure there are people who completely disagree with that. So take it for what it's worth, but that's what I would encourage you to do. Continue to hang into these groups. Come to these things, participate, ask questions, and I think you'll really benefit a lot from that.
Can I add something to this too, real quick, regarding going a step back real quick regarding underwriting and like the deals. One thing that I think we tend to do is like, oh, the seller's like, oh, this price is ridiculous. This is not a good deal. Like what? I don't always want to blame the broker. Like we say, sellers are unrealistic, but having a conversation with the broker about the deal, saying like, hey, does this work? Does that work? Like, I got around this ballpark, and maybe they say, yeah, the seller won't take that, but I can see how you got there. It only helps them better understand what you're looking for. And then if you're chasing for deals and you're not creating ways for deals to come to you, I think you're doing it wrong. Like if you spend all day, I love it. I just look at Jeff. If he shakes his head, I'm like, I'm doing it right. Like it's like a confirmation on my screen. But it's like if you're not building a relationship and brokers don't know what you're looking for, and if you don't know what you're looking for, go find someone that does. I could give you my buy box and tell you, this is what I'm looking for. This is the ballpark we're in. These are the markets I like. I'm a lot more open than most people with that because I have to fly anywhere I go. But still have that conversation. Like just because the seller might not take the deal doesn't mean the broker doesn't agree, like Jeff was saying, and necessarily doesn't mean the broker doesn't want to still help you on another one. And if they know what number you might be at, the day the seller possibly changes their mind or lowers their price, guess who's getting the call? It's not the person who said it's overpriced. It's the person who said, I'm around here.
Mhm.
Like if you're $3 million off and they call you or they drop the price by $1 million, $1.5 million, like, hey, you're halfway there. They'll give you a call. You never know. Like, dude, crazy stuff happens in this industry.
Yeah.
Oh, that
So
was a
to
great
that
compliment.
point,
Thank you,
Ed,
David.
the deal that I'm looking at where we looked at it, it's a 5 cap where they're at. Well, the guy who brought it to me, we had a conversation this morning. He's going to go back to the broker and say, hey, here's what we did, right? Here's our underwriting. And we think, you're asking 7.5. Our starting point is 6.5. That's before we know what work we need to do. Do we even need, is there, and it actually was less than 6.5, but is there a reason for us to continue the conversation if the most we could possibly pay is $6 million on this property? And so we'll see what happens, right? We'll either go forward and start to dig in a little bit deeper, or we'll walk away and we'll look at the next deal. It's that simple. It's not really complex. It's just math.
And also, Jeff, I don't know if this has happened to you or Peter, if you've experienced this, but I had a seller in single family. I called them and I was like, hey, my VA told me you want to sell. Obviously, I didn't say VA, but I'm like, hey, they told me you want to sell. Is that true? They're like, yeah, I want 1.4. I look and I'm like, okay, Zillow's not the end all be all. When Zillow says 800 and you want 1.4, I think you're crazy. And I was like, oh, how did you come up with that number? He's like, I built 3 units in the back. All right, then it's a different conversation now. Like 1.4 makes sense. Like you're not crazy. I just have the wrong info. So we don't know the full story. Maybe it is worth that much, but they don't. Maybe broker doesn't know. Seller, whatever the case is, just like, hey, how did you guys get to that number? Is a great question to ask because you can explain how you got to yours. Then that conversation runs a lot better. It's not you're wrong, I'm right. It's, hey, this is what I'm showing my work, essentially. And just have a conversation. Like I like to every time I underwrite, like, hey, or this is where I'm at. Let me know how we can bounce back and forth. And you never know. Those are the people you're gonna have the best relationship and conversation with, and they'll eventually call you again because they get how you're thinking. Which I think is very valuable as well. Wow, it's been an hour almost. Jesus Christ, that was great. Where the heck did time go?
Yeah, no, in fact, I was about to tell you, you're at the 5-minute warning, Ed. I know I hate it because there's so many things I wanted to do tonight.
Yeah,
none of which we're going to be able to do. I mean, look, I love the conversation. I love the engagement. I wanted to get you guys to engage a little bit more, but we only have a few minutes left, and I definitely want to respect your time. Alicia, I did want to bring you up if you're willing to tell you. I saw a comment earlier. I don't remember exactly what it said, but something about like getting back to talking to brokers. Have you been calling recently? Can you share some of your experience doing that here recently?
I can share. I basically just started again today. I've been like building up to it. So I mean, last night I've only reached out via the website so far. So
Okay.
I've just gotten a couple of responses back today. I'm going to start analyzing those and then, you know, get some back and forth going with emails and then calls once I've looked at the deals and have some feedback to give them. So
Okay. So you haven't made any calls. You've just been communicating. Okay. Is there a reason why you're not calling?
no, I mean, I literally just like last night, I sat down and started like
Okay.
honing in on the properties that I was going to be
Yeah.
looking for. So.
The thing that I will comment on that, and that's a great approach, right? Start that way. See, you know, I don't care how you start the conversation. The whole point is just to start a conversation with these brokers and have them get to know you, right? Obviously, I want you to establish that voice-to-voice and face-to-face relationship by having coffee with them, taking to lunch, whatever. But the reason I like to do the calls is I want to ask them the story, right? That's the primary question that I ask them. What's the story behind this? And that really, you just get such a better sense of that person. Are they worth your time to invest in them, to keep following up with them? Like the example that Ron's talking about, that guy doesn't really want to work with Ron. He's making that clear. He's making it way too hard to work with. You don't want to work with people like that, right? Now look, Ron may buy a killer deal for that guy. I don't know, but I'm not signing any agreement. I might stay in touch with him if he can show me a decent deal, but I'm not real motivated. There's plenty of brokers out there. I don't need to deal with that.
Actually, I actually emailed him back and told him this is not a good fit. So, but it was great meeting you. Thank you. And, you know, just ended it politely and nicely, but I don't want to burn any bridges, but it's just not a good fit. You know, if we can't do business, we can't do business, but I appreciate your time.
And I may even follow up and say, hey, by the way, here's my buy box. Email him the buy box. And if he responds, he responds. If he doesn't, perfect.
Yeah, that's actually how I started off the conversation, was with my buy box. Actually, I put this, what I put in the chat here is exactly what I, you know, pretty much exactly what I emailed to him.
Perfect. So the other thing I want to point out again before we wrap up for the day is, David, I really appreciate the comment that you put in there. David mentioned he spent thousands on education and mentorships, and he said you get the same value by coming to these calls. So thank you for that. That's very helpful to know that we are adding value. We get a lot of positive feedback. I don't know if you guys were on the call last night. You heard me talk about it. I ran into somebody in a face-to-face meeting who met me on this call, and he just couldn't say about how much value it added to him. So I know we didn't get to, you know, dive into actually calling brokers today, although we talked about it and around it a little bit. I did have a call queued up for us to listen to, but I don't like the sound quality of it anyway, so we'll work on a better one. But what I do want to do is encourage you guys. And Mario, thanks for showing up. I appreciate you being here. Mario has recorded calls for us in the past, and we've been able to use those to listen to. It's super helpful, guys, especially if you want to make calls and you haven't yet, to hear these calls happening. It really, because the key is confidence, right? I think the primary reason why people aren't making calls, number one, either because they just don't want to make calls, that's not their thing, and they're just here to learn, and that's fine, right? This is a team sport. You don't have to be the person calling the brokers. That doesn't have to be your role. But if you want it to be your role and you're not doing it, you're not doing it because you're not confident. Keep showing up. My goal is to make you confident. Once you gain that confidence, and a script will go a long way to doing that. And then beyond that, it's just practice. Because until you pick up that phone and call that first broker, it's always going to be intimidating. But once you realize they're just people, they're just wanting to do a deal just like you, just reach out to them and it gets easier and easier.
Guys, I'm a broker. Like, you're not talking to anyone different from me.
That's right.
Hopefully I'm a little smarter, but yeah.
Right. Yeah, then
I actually reached out to Edward and asked him if he could recommend any brokers in Atlanta, Georgia, Knoxville, Tennessee. So to anyone else who's on this call, maybe, utilize the people that are here. I mean, I don't really know enough brokers. Edward's a broker. He has a lot of connections. I just asked him if he can refer me to people. And, he said, yeah, he'll look into it and he'll try to get some information to me. So take advantage of this.
Awesome. Appreciate that. So David, I see you got your hand raised. Did you have a question or just a comment? You're muted, so you're going to have to unmute yourself. We can't hear you. You got to unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me
That's
now?
all right. Yes.
Hey, I just wanted to let everybody know, just jump out of your comfort zone, man. You guys are like wanting to know, how to make people, partners and things like that. But, just really, just have a conversation with somebody. And if you feel, good about the conversation, then just keep moving with it. If it doesn't feel right, then don't go with it.
Absolutely. What market are you in, David?
I'm actually a general contractor here in California. I do a lot of fix and flips right now, but I'm actually diving into some multifamilies. I haven't done any projects yet. I am part of Vina Jetty's deal. And her thing is just like way over the top. I like, smaller groups. I like to network with a lot of people, and it's hard to network with over 5,000 people. So, being involved with this group here, I want to get to know everybody in here. That's why I put my name and number in there. And if there's any value that I can bring to you, then I'll bring it to you.
Where in California are you at?
I'm actually in Palm Springs.
Oh, heck yeah. I might be coming out there in a few weeks, so I'll hit you up.
Yeah. So
you guys still underwater over there?
So you made it through all the flooding.
yeah, we had Hurricane Hillary. So yeah, she dumped 5.8 inches. I'm actually up in the Morongo Valley, closer to Joshua Tree, Yucca Valley area.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. But I moved up here because I want to actually get into doing container homes. But my goal right now is actually to invest in have a bar, and do a transportation company out here in Palm Springs, limousine transportation.
Nice.
Awesome. Very good. We appreciate you joining us.
Nope, no problem at all. But yeah, so I just, like I said, I just want everybody to, don't be scared. Just, you're never going to get anywhere if you don't just jump out there. We're all human. Everybody's human.
That's exactly right. So, well, guys, we're at 9:04. We're going to call it for tonight. Unless anybody else has any questions, I'm happy to hang on a few minutes and answer any specific questions. But otherwise, we'll see you again tomorrow night for those of you who can make it. 8 o'clock sharp Eastern time for the napkin underwriting. Ed will be on. In fact, I think I have a deal I want to bring to that call and underwrite it if that's okay, Ed. That's all we got for tonight, folks. Appreciate you being here. Thanks for your participation, and we will see you again soon. Thanks, guys.
See y'all.
Thank you.
Night, everybody.